stars come to shine when it's dark from so far away. Show us where we are. What makes the sun go to sleep every night, and what's it dreaming of? I wonder.
She was just all around happy, and she loved helping people who were in need.
She was very considerate while she was here. She took the time to listen.
Her life completely changed overnight. You have made me feel ashamed of the body that I'm surviving in, and she did get a feeding tube put in. She has recently made the decision to go through with the process of VSED. Hope's friend set up this GoFundMe account, 5-year survival rate of less than 1%.
The wedding. Everyone had a really nice time.
And this is where things start to get weird. She allegedly stole a patient's brain scans. It gets worse. Way worse.
She was volunteering to take care of disabled infants and kids and was stealing from them. She didn't need her feeding tube. She got $8,000 in New York. An entire family bought out her Amazon wish list.
The wedding never happened. So then the guests, they are believing that she is terminally ill. People are extremely upset, leaving the wedding crying.
She admitted to faking cancer, yes.
Hope was a wonderful friend to her.
I never would have seen any of this coming.
She'll get all of the pain meds that she wants, and this is the part that, for what? You are killing people. What's up, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jessica Hickson. I don't know why I'm doing this intro, because this is a Storytime Tuesday. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to Storytime Tuesday. Today's Storytime Tuesday comes to you in the form of a deep dive that I'm very, very excited to cover. I got so far deep into this deep dive that I had 9 pages of information that I'm ready to share with you guys, because just when you think that this story can't get any weirder, it gets weirder. I was trying to tell my husband about this the other day, and I just wanted to tell him everything at once. I'm I don't even know where to start, because this story is so crazy, sick, twisted, dark, and ultimately heartbreaking in the end. Basically, to give you guys a rundown of what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to be covering an influencer named Hope Otto. Hope Otto is very well known in the chronically ill community. I hate calling it a chronically ill community because nobody wants to be a part of this community, but she's very well known in the chronically ill community, and she has recently made the decision to go through with the process of VSED. For those of you guys who don't know what VSED is, it's essentially someone's decision to end their life through starving themselves and refraining from nothing to eat or drink in order to allow their body to shut down. So this is typically used with terminally ill patients. So someone who has a terminal cancer or dementia, things like that, where their quality of life is drastically decreased and that they're inevitably going to pass away within the next 6 months. So this is kind of an end of life process. And this is something that does have to be approved by your insurance, and you have to go through hospice and all this type of stuff, which we'll get into. But just wanted to give you guys a little rundown. Of course, as always, I will link all of these sources where I got all this information in the description below. There are a couple of Reddit pages, boards, Reddit, whatever they're called, TikTok videos, TikTok pages, and stuff like that. So I will leave all of that linked in the description below. But let's go ahead and get into the story of Hope Otto and why the story is so dark and twisted and why it hits so close to home for me.
It's what you're doing, making me feel like I'm falling. And when you're moving, I can hear my calling.
So upon doing a deep dive on Hope, I used my background check program that I have to try to look up any information I could find on her. And somehow there is no information, not even as little as a birth date. on her background check. So I did some more digging on her Instagram, and I actually found a picture of her hospital bracelet because I'm a creep like that. And I was able to find out that Hope Elena Otto was born on October 12th of 1997. She's from Long Island, New York, based on a post that she made. And she also went to MacArthur High School, where she swam on the swim team. She was one that played a number of varsity sports. So like I said, she was on the swim team. She also played softball and she ran track. She was very active in her community in high school. She was very active in her community volunteering. And like I said, she swam a lot. Like, she was on 2 swim teams and was swimming up to 7 days every single week. After high school, she went on to work as an EMT, and then also noted to work as a phlebotomist, a dispatcher, and also a physical therapy intern. She did that for 2 years until then she was put on a medical leave of absence. This was absolutely heartbreaking for Hope because she was finally happy in her position. She loved her job. She made friends with her coworkers. She was just all around happy, and she loved helping people who were in need. She was an overachiever, and she just felt genuinely excited for whatever the community would throw at her next. However, her life was completely shattered when at 21 years old, she went from taking care of patients to being a patient. Her life was then consumed with doctor's appointments, ER visits, physical and occupational therapy, hospital stays, psychotherapy, allergy injections, just everything you can think of medically. Her life completely changed overnight. I'm sure you guys can start to see why this one hits so close to home for me, because you guys know my life completely changed seemingly overnight and went from thriving to absolutely miserable for the past year, going to different specialists and doctor's appointments, getting poked and prodded. And I can totally sympathize with her on that, because that has been my life, and I can tell you it's extremely, extremely difficult. So I want to read one of her posts to you guys. This post is from October 8th of 2019. She says, "Treat me human. What a perfect sentence to sum up my experience as a patient. 4 years, 9 months is the time it took for the doctors to put my name to my disease. It took 4 orthopedics, 2 primary care doctors, hundreds of dislocations, sprains, and strains, a rheumatologist, and a geneticist to give me a peace of mind. And that was just for the Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis. It took almost all the advocacy I had to fight for an answer, when realistically, it should have been diagnosed within a year. I was doubted, told I was just flexible, clumsy, and out of shape, all of which killed my mental health, as I knew something just wasn't right. Was I crazy? I knew something was wrong, but no one took the time to fully listen to me, my concerns, and read through my medical chart. I knew that this couldn't be normal, but why do I have to fight for proper treatment? Why do we have to argue with doctors that are so quick to throw out an excuse? Why isn't there more awareness? Why can't doctors just listen and be honest? There are so many questions I have about healthcare, too many to count. For lack of better words, it's not fair, it's not humane, and I am not happy or even satisfied with some of the care I have gotten. I'm sorry, but when I tell you there's something wrong, I want a solution or a diagnosis or a cure. Is that too much to ask from these professionals? Some of which like to see you for 5-10 minutes, then throw some drugs in your direction. Long story short, no one, anywhere, at any time should have to fight for proper treatment. If I do recall, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, life being one of the major things that some of us have been scammed on. We all deserve a quality of life, not just a life, not something we have to endure or survive. Never give up, never stop fighting, and never stop advocating for yourself or your loved ones." So at this point, I'm sure you guys can see why this one hits so close to home for me, but stick around because there's a major turn of events coming up. Her diagnosis is literally the same as mine, and I can 100% relate to feeling like you're just getting jogged from doctor to doctor because no one really wants to deal with you. They just want to give you psychiatric medication to cover up whatever the issue is. And while I am extremely, extremely thankful for healthcare professionals, and I honestly would probably be dead without them at this point, but I think that there is something wrong with the healthcare system here, and I'm not going to get into that because that's for a totally different video, but I 100% agree with her that we should not have to fight for doctors to see us and diagnose us and look more into our problems. Throughout her medical journey, she does a lot of updating people on her progress. She does a lot of encouraging others to advocate for themselves and just overall like making people feel comfortable talking about their chronic illness, bringing awareness to chronic illness so that people will receive better care. So on October 25th, 2019, she posts this. Post-op update 1 of 2. These past 3 days of post-op have been hell. Tuesday, I had a balloon sinuplasty and a turbinate reduction surgery done. Due to my previous incidents after receiving anesthesia, I will go more into detail in another post. I was awake during this procedure. I received Valium, laughing gas, local anesthetic, and Percocet, so I didn't feel much. And my doc said it himself, "You are the best patient ever. You didn't move at all." Guess he didn't know I'm a professional patient, that is. We're experts at being poked and in pain. Anywho, Thursday night, I began to get really shaky, nauseous, short of breath, and my nose would not stop bleeding. Constant flow type of bleeding. Thus, I got my ass carried to the car and I was taken to North Shore University Hospital, unable to even stand. They quickly grabbed the wheelchair and rolled me in. My triage nurse saw how uncomfortable I was. She saw how much pain I was in. She saw me wrapped in blankets and sweatshirts, shaking from being cold. She saw me sweating and short of breath. She saw the vitals she took, which were 167 heart rate, 100.5 temp, 94/52 blood pressure, then triaged me for a nosebleed. My exhausted body sat in the waiting room for 36 minutes, struggling to keep myself conscious. When I finally got into a room and hooked up to monitors, doctors were concerned and immediately hung a bolus, I don't know what that means, of saline in Drew labs. As usual, shift change then occurred. My new doctor was convinced I was fine. All your labs are normal and there's nothing more we can do for you. What do you expect us to do? At this point, I was still tachycardic in the 140s laying down. I had thrown up 600 cc's of blood, all being swallowed from my nosebleed. Had my nose packed by the ENT, was in and out of consciousness, shaking, and my blood pressure was 84/45. I was crying from pain and they offered me Tylenol after they knew Percocet wasn't working. So I said F it and just laid there in pain. Yet the doc insisted you are fine. The doc knew of all my medical issues and insisted that this was normal for POTS patients, and so they discharged me home. Still feeling miserable. After getting home Tuesday night, I felt worse than when I went in. I laid in bed all night, awake and in pain, suffering because the doc didn't do his job. Wednesday rolled around and I reviewed my discharge paperwork only to find that I was in metabolic acidosis and had a white blood cell count of 15.74. I made a call to my primary and back to the ER I went, only this time to Plainview, which is the hospital that most of my admissions are at and everyone knows me. I went in with my paperwork from the day before and was taken straight back to a room. My usual ER doc, yeah, I'm there that often, asked me what I needed and I told her straight up, I need fluids, labs rechecked, and I'm good. So off we went, started a bag of lactated ringers, redrew labs, and waiting. About 2 hours later, my potassium came back critically low, 2.2. They immediately hung a bag of potassium and let it run. Once the bag finished, I felt so much better and I opted on going home. I'm now home, shoving as much nutrients as I can into this body, managing my own pain and taking it as easy as possible, packing and repacking my nose every 30 minutes, plus lots of naps. I'm just exhausted and feel like I'm stuck in a daze, but hey, I'm home and I feel like I'm well enough to be home, so that's a huge plus. She then posted this on November 18th, so less than a month later, and I'm not going to read through all of her posts, but I just want you guys to get a feel of how relatable she was to the chronically ill community. I mean, like, if you have a chronic illness, you can probably relate to the post that I just read and this post that I just put up, because we all seem to get that kind of care when we go see doctors. We often feel dismissed by doctors, and we often feel like, since we have a chronic illness, a lot of doctors see, and especially if you're a woman, a lot of doctors see women with chronic illnesses as just having like major anxiety. So they don't treat you the same way that they would treat someone who is actually sick. Like, I feel these posts so hard. Like, I feel them deep within my soul. But anyways, Hope went as far as to make a medical binder, keeping track of all of her visits to the hospital, like what the reason was for going, how long she was there, if she was admitted, etc., which honestly made me feel a whole lot better about my situation, because I feel like I was seen as someone who went to the ER a lot, which I only ever went because my migraine meds, after I take them for a certain period of time, they like stop working and I can't be relieved of any of my pain anymore. So I would go to the ER a couple times a year to get some meds for my migraine. However, it makes me feel a lot better because Hope went, just in this little screenshot that she showed us, at least 13 times in the year. So I don't feel so bad. A month after her last hospital visit, not even a month after, she makes another post about being admitted for a kidney infection. And then again, less than a month later, with GI issues, she said she couldn't stop vomiting. They found a mass on her liver. She hadn't slept. She was constantly being poked and prodded. She was feeling anxious and frustrated. And then she posted something again on March 4th. And I actually do want to read you guys this one because this one hit really hard for me. So she says, update, over the last few weeks, I've been struggling both mentally and physically. I had an appointment with my rheumatologist on Monday, and to put it quite simply, it sucked. Backtrack 3 weeks, my left ankle has been in a 7 out of 10 pain. Not too much worse than my usual pain level, but it was relentless. However, due to my medical PTSD, I hate bringing up new problems that can potentially be seen as me being overdramatic. At the appointment, I mentioned it and we did a series of x-rays. Turns out I have not one, but 2 stress fractures on my tibia. Thus, I'll be in a boot with minimal weight bearing for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Due to the fact that these fractures occurred with no form of trauma, my doctor is suspecting osteoporosis, which will be potentially confirmed by a bone density scan. Boo, I'm only 22. The middle is like about some blood work, and then at the end she says, overall, the appointment made me feel defeated and in a place I didn't think I'd find myself. I didn't think I'd find myself this out of it, upset, frustrated, and in the physical state I am. I believe I deserve to live my life and not have to fight for some quality of it. I believe I deserve to be provided with some kind of supportive treatment instead of having my bloods corrected after weeks of horrible symptoms only to be left alone to drop again. I believe that the crack in our healthcare system is severely limiting how myself and so many others are treated. This isn't right. Where's the consistency, care, and communication? When will we get to stop fighting for our lives that we're barely living? So obviously, again, like malpractice from the doctors, which I can totally relate with. Also, not wanting to bring up new issues for fear of looking crazy or being over dramatic. So you just kind of like deal with the extra issues until it gets to a point where you have to be seen for it. And a lot of us who have chronic illness do feel stupid and invalidated and brushed off when we go to the doctor. So with this post, you can start to see that she really knows what to say to influence the chronic illness community. However, when we come to this post on May 25th, and I know this is getting to be a lot just about like health stuff, but I promise it's going somewhere and you definitely want to stick around. So we come to this post on May 25th, and this is when I really start to have an issue with the way that she's talking to and about healthcare providers or healthcare professionals. So she says, dear healthcare professional, why do you think you know how I'm feeling? You're not in my body, and damn, if you were, ha. I'm sorry that I experience 9 out of 10 pain every day of my life. I'm sorry that the pain management doctors ordered me Dilaudid every 4 hours. I guess that is too much for you to do. I'm sorry that unfortunately the doctors have not been able to give you a diagnosis so that on paper you can understand my condition instead of speaking to me and believing me. I'm sorry that I'm nauseous 24/7, even with your Reglan and Zofran. You don't want to clean up my mess? Well, I don't want to make that mess. It's embarrassing. Are you annoyed that I haven't eaten since I've been here? Well, if you haven't already processed it, I'm nauseous 24/7. So I'm sorry that me vomiting upwards of 10 times a day has made me have no appetite. You're angry that you haven't been able to collect a stool sample in a week now? Well, yeah, me too. That's also causing me extreme discomfort. Sorry for my bowels not working. Are you upset that I'm taking up a bed when I shouldn't be here for a week and when you're this young? I want to live my life, not survive through it. I clearly want to be here for months out of the year. Dear healthcare professional, why don't you look at me, speak to me, try and have some compassion? If you would take the time to come into my room and witness me curled up in a ball crying in pain, maybe then you could give me my Dilaudid without degrading me. Maybe then I could ask for medication without the fear of being judged. Dear healthcare professional, you have hurt me. You have made me feel less than. You have made me feel insane. You have made me feel hopeless. You have made me feel invalid. You have made me feel ashamed of the body that I'm surviving in. And healthcare professional, that is a damn shame. So if you guys look at the date on this one, May 25th, 2020, which means that the pandemic was like in the peak of the major problems, right? So the way that she's talking about these healthcare providers who don't think that she needs to be there in the middle of a pandemic when they're probably running into so many issues and lack of beds and lack of healthcare providers, and like they're probably going nuts at this point because COVID was new. People didn't know much about it. So the healthcare workers were being run into the ground. Plus, COVID was going around. So the healthcare workers were short-staffed because nurses and doctors were getting sick. And so they didn't want her taking up a bed for the people who were legitimately dying from COVID. So anyway, she listed her She listed her diagnosis, plural, on an Instagram post. So I'm going to go through those with you guys real quick. So acute recurrent sinusitis. I looked it up. It just means a sinus infection. The next one, allergic reaction to food. She also states in a lot of her other posts that one of her diagnoses is MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, which I also have. And with mast cell activation syndrome, that's essentially like what your body does. It overreacts. It gives your body like an internal reaction to anything at any given time. And it could be that you're not actually allergic to that thing, but your body at that point just doesn't want that thing happening to you or in your body. So for instance, like obviously I'm not allergic to warm water, but sometimes when I get in the shower, my body's like,
hey, today I feel like being allergic to warm water.
So then my entire body breaks out in a rash. So like being allergic to things is just, it's part of MCAS and it sucks. Yeah, obviously it sucks, but just part of the condition. Anaphylaxis, also common with the condition. Anorexia, self-explanatory. Bandemia, I had to look up what that one was, and it basically just means like an overproduction of white blood cells, which indicates an infection. So I'm assuming that that was noted on her diagnoses when she was in the hospital with some type of infection. Benign hypermobility syndrome. This kind of contradicts her Ehlers-Danlos syndrome diagnosis because like hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disorder that affects a lot of different organ systems. Benign hypermobility syndrome is just simply being hypermobile with no other issues, which in itself, there's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of people who are hypermobile for no apparent reason, but it doesn't cause any other issues. So that's kind of interesting to me. And it kind of leads me to believe that she was like doctor shopping and trying to figure out which doctor would diagnose her with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome instead of just hypermobile syndrome. Depression, which, you know, going through chronic illness in this, like, hi. That's pretty common. Going through all of these like medical issues, I feel like that's pretty common. Deviated nasal septum, one could conclude that her recurrent sinus infections maybe have something to do with that. Diffuse pain, whatever, basically just means pain all over, which, hi, that's what Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is. The next one is EDS, which is what I have, and it says the hypermobile type. I've already explained to you guys what that is. And then elevated IgE level, I looked that up as well, and it just means allergies, allergic reactions. Facial cellulitis, that just means like an infection in your face. Could be due to an abscessed tooth or some type of like dental issue. Fibromyalgia, also pain all over. So this is kind of how you know that like she's doctor shopping to try to get her diagnosis that she wants, because a lot of these are like the same thing, but they're different diagnoses based on like the different doctors. Acid reflux, generalized hypermobility of joints. This is also just hypermobility. We saw this on the first slide, the benign hypermobility syndrome, generalized hypermobility, same thing. Hypertrophy of both inferior, I looked this up and I think it has something to do with her deviated septum, but I'm not positive on that. Instability of right ankle joint. Yeah, welcome to Ehlers-Danlos. All of your joints are unstable. But this is interesting to me because in her post about like her ankle, hurting her ankle or whatever, she said that she has 2 stress fractures, but it doesn't mention anything about that in her diagnosis. It just says instability. So that's interesting. Then we've got nausea, which is pretty typical with POTS. A lot of POTS patients have lots of nausea. Of course, there's POTS. She's diagnosed with palpitations. Also, like that's what POTS is. A large part of it is like your heart goes crazy. Polyarticular arthritis. I had to look this one up, but it means pain affecting 5 or more joints. Hello, welcome to EDS, which just further proves my point that she was like looking for someone who was going to diagnose her with whichever one it was that she wanted to be diagnosed with. Postnasal drip, very common with any illness, whatever that says, and that is just a kidney infection, usually caused by a UTI. So she did mention she was in the hospital for a kidney infection, so that would line up. Shortness of breath, also very common with POTS and also MCAS. Another shortness of breath from a different doctor. And then shoulder instability. Hello, welcome to the world of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I had shoulder surgery for the same exact thing. And yeah, that's what it is. It's instability in your joints because they are hypermobile. Anyways, up to this point, I felt sympathy for her. I felt compassion for her. I know how miserable these conditions can be. However, I was a little bit skeptical of the different diagnoses and why she was diagnosed with like the same thing, but a different way of wording it or a different name, and the different healthcare providers that were listed that she would go to. Now, don't get me wrong. I 100% agree with getting a second opinion. I myself fought to get to the doctor that I went to. Now, this wasn't because I was doctor shopping. I actually researched the best specialist in the area and went straight to him. I knew that if I went to someone who was extremely knowledgeable about it, they would be able to rule it out if that wasn't the problem. I went through the Facebook support group and searched his name and looked up all the different reviews that he had. It was split half and half between people who absolutely loved him. They were the first doctor. He was the first doctor to actually listen to them and hear their concerns and make a correct diagnosis. And then there was another set of people who absolutely hated him. They said he was very thorough and explained things. However, they didn't get the diagnosis that they wanted. So that told me that he was not scared to, make sure to be very thorough with my labs and my tilt table test and all of the testing that they did and all the different criteria I had to meet. That told me that he was going to be thorough with that so that if this wasn't what the problem was, we could rule it out and move on from there. Which honestly, you guys, low key, I can understand and I can sympathize with her. I know that when I was at my worst, which was like right toward the beginning of when all this started, when I was at my worst, I was desperate for a diagnosis just to be able to prove that like I'm not crazy. And as much as I should have been heartbroken when I got a diagnosis, I was relieved to know that like I'm not crazy. There is a name for this, and there's a way to treat it. I was happy that it wasn't something more and that medication can allow me to live a regular, good quality of life and a long life. Like the life expectancy for someone with my condition and the conditions that she has, it's not cut short. So that was a relief for me. So I can understand her really desperate for a diagnosis just to be able to kind of relax, seek treatment, and allow people to see that she really does have an illness and that she really is sick. People also speculate that this is why she got her feeding tube put in, because she does have listed on here anorexia. And she did get a feeding tube put in that she was seen on a Facebook post saying that she fought to have this feeding tube put in for a long time. It leads people to believe that she purposely made herself malnourished so that she was able to get this feeding tube in order to prove to people that she was actually sick. There was something external that was showing people that she was actually really sick, which of course that's just speculation, but I wanted to make sure to throw that in there. However, it should also be noted that Hope is known as a longtime opiate user who blames her symptoms that are consistent with withdrawal and narcotic bowel on all of these multitude of conditions when they're actually just withdrawal symptoms and narcotic bowel, which I guess is just where the narcotics destroy your gut, basically. I did have my suspicions, but I couldn't jump to any conclusions because I'm also a fellow sufferer of chronic illness, specifically the ones that she's been diagnosed with. And so I couldn't jump to any conclusions. However, I came across some information that could be unforgivable, and this is where things start to get weird. To understand all the outrage around Hope, I need to take you back a few years, and we're going to go back to 2017. So this GoFundMe account is an account that was started in 2017. Hope's friend set up this GoFundMe account to help aid Hope in funding her medical expenses and life assistance because she allegedly had cancer. I hadn't found any solid proof on her claiming to have had cancer. And you guys know I don't like to go strictly off of hearsay, and that's all I could find on Reddit was like, oh, I heard that she did this and this and this. So I did my own digging, like the creep that I am, and I found this Instagram post from November of 2017 where she hashtags cancer, alluding to the fact that she has cancer. Not only that, but I also found a string of text messages between her and her friends, and where, in my opinion, she pretty much admits to having lied about having cancer. And I'll just read you guys a conversation and you guys can tell me what you think. But I also watched a Q&A with her best friend where she openly states that Hope told her reason for doing it and that she lied about it. So I'll show you guys a clip of that in just a second. But let's read through this conversation. So Hope says, exactly what diagnosis would you like? Because I'm apparently not willing to show anyone. Meanwhile, they're posted on my Instagram page. But listen, you guys can drag my name through the mud until my face rots off. I don't care. There are few people I've welcomed into my life after years. It'll stay that way. Someone else says, and this is like her friends group chat, okay? Just because they're posted on your Instagram doesn't mean you're diagnosed with them. Shouldn't it take the trained medical professional, or in your words, professional patient, to know that? You post the same pictures that you used when you faked cancer. You're dragging your own name all on your own. Hope says, I'm not sure what this is meant to say, but it says, which downsides do you want? I can screenshot my medical records for your personal joy, and I know what I've done, but people have to move on. I'm not sure what somebody crossed out there, but people move on, grow, learn, and change. As Matt has witnessed, all of them. I'm not losing for my enjoyment. I'm posting for awareness. So little people know if this option I don't even know what she's trying to say, but I think she's trying to say I'm posting for awareness. Not very many people know that this is an option and it should be known. I think she's referring to the VSED option. And then one of the friends said back, wouldn't be the first medical records. Remember the brain scans? We'll talk about the brain scans in a minute. You and very few people, other people, knew about your scan until very recently. You got lucky and it was swept under the rug, and you face close to zero consequences, especially for what you could, and many people I should have gotten jail time alone. I would also like to add that Matt did not grow. He just also profited off of your GoFundMe and probably was profiting up until very recently. He had your old car once you got your new Jeep. Girl, none of us are stupid. For shits and giggles, I'll go along with your awareness logic. But then you were once again trying to get money from people. You linked your Cash App, replicated old merch for afterlife expenses. This is the last thing I'll be adding because I've been looking to personally address you for a very long time. I definitely didn't think it would be in a group chat with your family members and a random TikToker, but I'll take it. And Hope said back, because I need help with cremation expenses. Yes, I put up a Cash App and did a t-shirt drive again because I need cremation costs. No one is benefiting over here. And lastly, the Jeep was used and I don't even have it anymore. Matt has nothing to do with this other than holding my hand and talking to the doctors with me. None of her messages make sense. Like, as I'm reading these, look at what it actually says, because I'm trying to make sense of it, but that's not what it actually says. And then someone said back, the Jeep was bought with stolen money. Doesn't matter, used or brand new, $4,000 can't buy a new Jeep. I'm sure if you were able to scam an extra $20K, it would have been brand new, but that's not relevant, and neither is the length of time you owned it. It wasn't your money to spend. And when given the opportunity to make things a little more right and donate the money, you still didn't do that. You are as entitled to people's money as you are their forgiveness. You could have been a doctor, professional swimmer, or done literally anything with kids. You're gifted in so many ways, but instead, you used your knowledge for deceit instead of power, and that is where you are so menacing and evil. And Hope replied, "It wasn't for your info. It came from EMS money that I worked for. Also, FYI, any money that was given was used for other donation as per blank's request." Mind you, there's been no proof of this donation since. And she also said, "Speak to Matt. I'm not who I was 6 to 8 years ago. I grew, developed, and worked oneself. Unfortunately, these diagnoses came up trying to rule out others." Someone else said back, "Hope, the GoFundMe was taken down, and a few weeks later you had a brand new car, and Matt finally had something to drive after walking and catching rides from people. It has already been confirmed that you didn't donate the money. Scroll up, blank already said it. You're not fooling anyone. Like you're literally being called out and continuing to lie." Then someone said, "Then why is blank stating it wasn't donated? Is blank the liar here? Because unlike you, she has no track record of lying to us. You're picking up on little things to invalidate what everyone is saying. You're missing the big picture and have yet to actually claim responsibility, whether it was 20 years ago or a year ago. It happened, Hope, and you hurt a lot of people in the process. I'm glad you're okay with your scam, have forgiven yourself, and feel like you've improved, but people like me didn't even find out from you about the lie because you tried sweeping it under the rug. We were the ones who had to deal with all the parents from work asking if they were going to get their money back and what happened. I can name 4 families specifically I spoke to regularly in regards to that. I'm not even going to state my current opinion on your current medical and financial situation because I have no business in it, nor do I want anything to do with it, but I can comment on the past because it affected not only me and my friends, but my family. Hope, my grandparents knew about it. I have no intentions of dragging you through the mud just for you to be held accountable for your actions, which you have yet to do in the 3 to 4 years since, and at this point, I doubt will ever happen. People went through your Instagram and found the hashtags of hashtag tumor and hashtag cancer that you did to yourself. You were playing the victim here when you literally were menace. How dare you sit here and after everything that happened, say what you're saying? I sleep soundly at night now, but I didn't in 2017, 2018. When I thought I was going to lose you to a brain tumor. I don't think you truly understand the mental toll you took on a lot of us, whether it be blank, myself, blank, 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 just to name a few from our friend group. It's sad to think how we were like a family, spent the entire summers, graduations, meets, jobs together, and I couldn't even tell you what was real." And then whoever screenshotting this said, "Hope, literally everyone knows that you're lying. Your excuses and trying to bring others in to validate your claims, like Matt, who most likely doesn't even exist, or if he does, he doesn't play a role in your life that you claim he does, just proves that point. Have you ever heard of Munchausen syndrome? You realize that you're being exposed all over TikTok and Reddit. There are people that know you personally that are addressing you with facts, and you're still lying like no one else can see right through it. That is sick, and that proves that the issues at hand here with you are much more dangerous than originally thought." Okay, so I'm obviously well aware that people can change and people can grow and people can, feel remorse for their actions. People do dumb stuff when they're young, whatever. But as I started to really get into the details of this story and really the details started to unravel, and I'm just shooketh. Like my brain is blown. So based on what her very close friends say, she allegedly stole a patient's brain scans when she was working in the medical field and used them as her own. To my understanding, she took a photo of the brain scans to prove to people that she had a brain tumor because the type of cancer she was trying to say that she had was a very rare form of brain cancer called DIPG, which only affects 200 to 400 school-age children every year in the US. Not to mention a 5-year survival rate of less than 1%. Not only that, but it gets worse. way worse. Take a look at what her best friend had to say about all of the things that she had allegedly done while she was in New York.
She was caught in New York. This is from what I was told from people that knew her then, including family of people involved. She was apparently altering medical documents of her own, copying stuff from patients' charts, including like brain scans and stuff, and altering her own. She was stealing a variety of stuff, including prescription pads. She was pretending to be a nurse and had a burner phone and was only taking care of select people. She was caring for, I believe, infants and toddlers that were disabled and stealing from those families, including medical equipment, from what I was told. And then after she got thrown out for like all that crap and the fake cancer stuff, she got sent here. She didn't get charged because and I quote, everyone just had too much else going on. Yeah, so she gets to PA, had all these conditions she was able to copy from people off Instagram, myself included. Realized I was close by so she could get in with my doctors. The doctors of mine that did see her said she didn't need her feeding tube, and they didn't see any evidence of gastroparesis, really. Yes, she can eat regular food. I've seen her eat McDonald's, Taco Bell. Chicken nuggets is a pretty common one for her. She likes Gushers and fruit roll-ups a lot. Candy's big one. But yeah, she was twisting doctors, and whenever she didn't get the answer she wanted, she saw another one. I don't know how she didn't get charged. I really don't. I think it's because she had a attempt that got her thrown out of the other house she was staying at in New York, and that's the main reason she got sent here. I think that's how she dodged it. She admitted to faking cancer, yes. She got $8,000 in New York that we know of in donations. I don't know how much she's gotten here, but we met on Instagram. She did ask me to put the Cash App on my bank account, not in my name, and I refused because, no, she was probably stealing meds from people. Yeah, I don't think she has any shame, though. What was her excuse for faking cancer? She said everyone goes through a phase. It's been ridiculous. Yes, her family knows. Apparently that's why she got kicked out.
So you could say that I've quickly gone from like feeling sorry for this girl and sympathizing with her and feeling her pain to now like completely mind blown at how someone could be so disgusting. And I should have probably mentioned, like, all of this is taking place when she is in Pennsylvania. The brain scan, cancer, fraud, scam thing happened when she lived in New York. Along with the GoFundMe page that she had made for her and raised funds with, she also sold t-shirts to raise awareness for this cancer that just so happened to be identical, other than the color of them, to the shirts that she also created for awareness of EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, years later. So she had her cancer GoFundMe and t-shirt fundraiser, and then later on down the road, when she moved to Pennsylvania, started her GoFundMe for afterlife expenses and also had her t-shirt fundraiser for EDS awareness. Now back to present time. So on social media, she does a lot of documenting her illness. I've told you guys that. A lot of, bringing people along this journey and also giving information about this VSED process. If you guys don't remember, I talked about at the beginning of this video about it's basically people electing to unalive themselves due to their poor quality of life and their terminal illness. In a way of stopping eating and drinking and letting their body shut down. I'm going to give you guys a little glimpse into her TikToks about this process and how it works. So let's go ahead and watch one of those. And let me warn you, the audio on this video absolutely sucks, but I think it's an important video for you guys to watch. So this was from a TikTok page that was made to basically like expose the scam. So they have a little caption note thing here too, but that's not on her video. That is on the video that reposted this video, if that makes sense. Okay.
So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what VSED is. So VSED, VSED, stands for voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, or in my case, or a tube-fed person's case, stopping tube feeds and hydration. I had first learned about this from a TEDx talk, actually, and it was by Phyllis Schachter, so I would suggest watching that if you want to learn, like, a decent amount about it. So VSED is actually legal in all 50 states in the U.S., unlike MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. You also do not have to be terminally ill to access VSED. You can have a chronic illness that is listed as progressive, and you can still be able to do it. So once you start the VSED process, it typically takes anywhere between 3 and 21 days. Throughout the process, you're supposed to be under 24/7 monitoring, whether that be by a nurse or a family member, another caretaker. Is supposed to be monitored 24/7. And then once hospice comes into play, they'll give medications, either anti-anxiety, antipsychotic, pain meds, nausea meds, anything like that to keep symptoms under control, but not IV fluids, not tube feeds, nothing to prolong life. Another big reason why I'm very supportive of VSED and patients that do it is you can choose to stop at any time. Unlike with MAID, where you're taking one singular pill and that's it, you have that whole process, that 3 to 21 days. At any point during that, you can decide to opt out and start eating and drinking again. So it's not done nearly as quickly as MAID is. It's taken over a much longer period of time. Now, typically, VSED, although it sounds pretty horrible, it tends to be a very peaceful process. Other than hunger pains for the first couple days, it's very peaceful, and you usually end up dying in your sleep. It's not something that's full of torture and pain and suffering. Another big reason why I'm supportive of this in so many patients is a lot of patients that choose this, they want to die with some kind of dignity left. They don't want to be down in the late stages of dementia. They don't want to be down in the late stages of whatever illness they have. For me, it's Ehlers-Danlos. I would rather not go through all the surgeries that I'm going to need, that I already do need, that I don't want.
I first want to stop her right there, because coming from someone who has EDS, does it suck? Abso-freaking-lutely. Is there a spectrum when it comes to it? Absolutely. Are some people in more pain than others with this condition? Absolutely. But it's all manageable with medication. You can have a great quality of life with this condition as long as you're willing to work with doctors to find a regimen that works for you. I've gone back and forth with my doctor, like different medications triggering my asthma and then this and that. Like, I have to find out what works best for my body because everyone's different. But that doesn't mean that my quality of life is completely diminished because of this. I mean, yeah, it does pretty much suck a lot of the time, but it's not something that you can just end your life. Like, I don't understand. Like, EDS is not a terminal illness. Your life expectancy is not any shorter than the normal average person unless this starts to drastically affect your organs, like your different connective tissues that control your organs, your different organ systems, whatever, which rarely happens. All of these surgeries that she's talking about, they would literally be, I can't even. She's like making me so mad, and I'll get into why in a second. But all of these surgeries that she's referring to would be something like her deviated septum surgery or a shoulder surgery, which I've had. Any type of like joint surgery, like basically our connective tissue is extremely mobile because our body doesn't use collagen in the way that it's supposed to. So what happened with me when I had my shoulder surgery? There's your socket, there's your joint, whatever. The capsule that's holding this all in place isn't strong enough to withhold all the hypermobility stuff. So it stretches and stretches and stretches, and then your shoulder joint loses its ability to keep it in place. So my shoulder kept dislocating. So they go in and they cut the capsule that holds it in place and they overlap it. It's called a capsular plication. If I'm saying that right. I don't even know. I'm just making all this up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not making it up, but my doctor did tell me this stuff. So they cut the sac that holds it all in place, and then they overlap it and they sew it so that it's super duper tight. And then you go through physical therapy to stretch it just enough that it's still supporting your joint, but it's not too loose and not too tight. That's the type of surgeries that she would have to go through, you guys. They're not like open heart surgeries and brain surgeries and this kind of stuff. It's legitimately like joint surgeries. Possibly. Probably not likely. They're definitely not life-threatening. And let me reiterate that going through this VSED process is not normal when it comes to EDS. This is used for end of life, like dementia patients, patients who have terminal brain cancer, like patients whose quality of life is drastically affected by their illness. So the fact that she's even comparing it to someone whose quality of life is that of like a dementia patient is just absolutely disgusting to me. Like there are literally people with EDS who run marathons. And like I said, there is a spectrum, but still, like there are people who find a genuinely fabulous quality of life. So for her to be encouraging this VSED process to people who have this condition terrifies the ever-living crap out of me, you guys, because since I have EDS, it's likely that at least one of my children will have EDS, which means that my children may be seeking support when they get older. If they get diagnosed with this condition, they may be seeking support elsewhere, online perhaps. So for her to be online encouraging these people to follow through with unaliving due to this condition is so freaking scary. Like imagine if you have a chronic illness, how many times have you felt like you're just down in the dumps? Like it couldn't possibly get any worse than this. Probably a lot of times. So imagine if you were like 12 years old and you were in that state of vulnerability where you just feel like you can't get any worse. You're in so much pain. It's rainy outside. You're just having a terrible day, you know, like, and you're online seeking support and you come across a video like that, encouraging you to unalive for something that is not a terminal illness. She openly admits to people following her journey to see if this would be a good option for them. It's not a good option for anyone who doesn't have a terminal illness. Terminal. So she claims to want to follow through with this VSED process because her and her doctors can't come to an agreement or find a system of medications that keep her comfortable and keep her pain management under control. So right now she claims to be under hospice care, which I wasn't totally sold on. I felt like maybe that was a stretch, but her former best friend did confirm that she actually was under hospice care because her best friend was going to be the one to be the 24-hour around-the-clock care for her while she was going through this process until she found out all of the rest of this information. And then she said, nope, can't do it, see you later. She claims to be in the pre-fasting stage of this process, which I guess is where they only eat 500 calories a day in order to minimize the symptoms that come along with this process. She's basically like starving herself, like pre-starving herself in order to minimize those symptoms, which knowing that she has anorexia on her diagnosis chart is a huge red flag for me. Just saying. But she did stop the process a couple of times. One excuse being that she didn't have around-the-clock care, which is a requirement for VSED, and her family and friends obviously have disowned her, so she didn't have that around-the-clock care. She did have a boyfriend, husband, fiance thing, buckle up for that one because we're going to get into that one, and that one is just a whole nother roller coaster. But that was one reason she stopped the process. She initially said that she stopped the process because she was having trouble finding a hospice center that would take her insurance and also provide the VSED accommodations. But then once she finally found one that would accept her, then she decided she wanted to do it in the comfort of her own home. So then she postponed it again. And then she randomly decided to postpone it because she was dealing with all the drama of like people speaking out about her, which obviously I'm glad that she didn't follow through with it. But also, like, if I was going through with that plan and there was drama going on around me, I'd be like,
Peace out, bitches. I'm out. See you on the other side. Have fun dealing with the drama, not dealing with it.
you know, like, I would not postpone this process if my quality of life was that bad that I needed to follow through with this process. I would not postpone it due to some drama. Like, what? No. Anyways, she has jumped back on continuing with the plan per her best friend's knowledge. She has a Cash App allegedly in her Instagram profile. I'm not sure about that because she won't accept me to follow her. But there does seem to be a bit of a cycle here. You know, like she gets some terrible illness that she needs funds for. She gets the funds, then comes on with another just catastrophic diagnosis and starts another funding for it, and then gets the funds for that, and along comes another catastrophic diagnosis. It just seems like a recurring cycle here. Of course, when all of this started coming to light and people started questioning her motives, the people closest to her felt the need to speak out about what they really knew, what was going on behind the scenes, in order to save more people from getting hurt financially, physically, emotionally, etc. So we're going to talk about her best friend, who I'm going to hide her identity because I feel like she's dealt with enough with this publicly, and I can't imagine going through what she went through. But we're going to call her Paige. We're going to talk to Paige, not talk to her. We're going to talk about Paige in a minute. But first, I want to read you something from one of her old coworkers, one of Hope's old coworkers. So this coworker said, I worked with Hope about 4 or 5 years ago. She was at that job for quite a few years. Someone I know had known her from childhood and told me that she was a compulsive liar. Of course, at the time, I didn't have any proof, and she hadn't done anything to me at the time, so I was just careful what I believed. We weren't friends, we just worked together. Not too long after, she would tell me stories, and I had always taken it with a grain of salt. Eventually, the stories weren't adding up. Later on, I heard she was making up lies about me, as she did other people. She went as far as to make up lies about management, too. She and her friend were also bullies toward 2 of the staff that worked with me. This went on for a good year, almost year and a half. Not really sure what their problem was against these 2 girls. The other bully was the one who made the GoFundMe for Hope. Eventually, her friends from her hometown found out the truth. To my knowledge, all of them, that I knew of at least, stopped being friends with her. The GoFundMe claiming she had cancer is 1,000% true. This was back when she didn't have all of the medical knowledge. I was in the group chat that the GoFundMe was posted in. She did claim to have cancer. I don't have the screenshots. I completely ignored it when it was posted. Some of my coworkers did donate. She had customers donating to it too. She scammed her coworkers and her customers. I'm also here to confirm someone's comment about the EpiPen story is also true. I'm not sure what that story was. I also worked with her boyfriend, Matt. Matt is a nice guy, but he's known for a very long time what Hope is like. At this point, he's enabling her behavior and letting people be fooled by her sick game. In my opinion, he's just as sick as she is. My point being, Matt isn't innocent either. Someone who worked with both Hope and myself ate peanut M&Ms in front of her one day. Hope began clenching her chest, saying that she couldn't breathe, and asked if they could throw out the M&Ms in the other room. This person knew that Hope was a liar and didn't believe her. The person agreed to throw them out in a different room, but instead the coworker acted like they threw away the M&Ms. Hope obviously thought the person threw away the candy. Conveniently, though, Hope didn't clench her chest anymore. The person kept sneaking the M&Ms under the desk with Hope in the same room. Interesting, right? When I found her TikTok page a few months ago, I was so upset, especially because many chronically ill people follow her and are inspired by her. It's a huge kick in the face for those who are chronically ill. Yes, the people who aren't sick follow and support her too, and it's devastating to them as well. To everyone who was hurt by her, especially the chronic illness community, I'm so sorry. It must be truly devastating to think you have something like this in common with someone just to find out they're lying for followers and clout. I know it's not my place to apologize for her actions, but I wanted to expose her so badly for a while, but I never had any proof. It's very clear that Hope is mentally ill and doesn't want to help herself. This, I've heard, is why her mom won't let her around her younger siblings. Please be wary what you see on the internet. I'm sure Hope will disappear and try this all again when this dies down. Don't let her. I'm glad this thread exists, and I hope more people share their experiences being her friend or working with her. Forgive me for not going into too much detail. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. So this just really goes to show that this goes way back. This was someone who worked with her. But now you might be wondering, where's her family? Where are her other friends? Like, where are the people who love her? Well, according to her best friend, Paige, after all that stuff went down in New York and finally the final straw being an unalive attempt, they kind of all cut her off and she went to Pennsylvania to start a new life. She did have a boyfriend, fiance / husband who she claimed to marry. So we'll first go ahead and take a look at what she had to say about that.
Another thing that is going on, or that happened already, was the wedding last Saturday. Everyone had a really nice time. It looked amazing. All the food was good. However, I was only able to sit on the couch for about an hour of it, and then I was just in way too much pain and, like, zoning out, dissociating. Like, I was not feeling good. So my fiance made the decision that I should just go upstairs and lay down, and he'll finish up downstairs with everyone, which was appreciated, but kind of sucked because I don't even remember people coming to say goodbye. So yeah. So as of right now, the plan is just to start the 5-day fast on December 27th. That way I can make it through the holidays with Matt, as per his request. Make it through the holidays with him, and then after that we will start the final fast, as long as nursing is available to be around, because they have to be around 24/7 when I start this. So if they can't be, we might run into some issues there with staffing, but it'll work out, they said. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, please let me know, but if not, this is where we're at.
So that's what Hope has to say about this alleged wedding. However, her best friend Paige was there, and she has a different recollection of what happened. Paige says that the wedding never happened because Hope was unconscious, and that this was one of the final straws for Paige when she finally decided to cut off the friendship. And I'll tell you why. So imagine this. It's Hope's wedding day. Paige is her best friend. She drives 2 hours to be a part of her big day. She's doing her hair and makeup. She gets halfway through doing her makeup and she's got the primer done and one eye done. Okay. All of a sudden, Hope disappears. Paige is like, where the hell did she go? Like, it's your wedding day. The guests are showing up. There are people here. Where is she? Well, she finds her, and Hope is completely unconscious. Her eyes are rolled in the back of her head and she's not responding. So at this point, Paige goes and gets Matt, her fiance, and says, what are we supposed to do? The wedding is supposed to start like now and she's unconscious. This is when Matt tells her that Hope has been abusing opiates and that she's been taking this cocktail of pain medication and that she's essentially high right now. So then the guests are thinking at this point that Hope is just dying. They are believing that she is terminally ill, and so they think that this is just the end of her life. So people are extremely upset and leaving the wedding crying. Paige had to go up and tell everyone that obviously they were going going to postpone the wedding until they figured out what was going on. And so the wedding never actually happened. Apparently, this all happened in the presence of Paige's 11-year-old daughter, I believe, who absolutely adored Hope. And so I'm sure this was a very traumatic experience for her, and Paige was not okay with it, rightfully so. So Paige said that the fact that she pulled this not only on her wedding day, but around her daughter, who she knows adores her, was just the final straw for her. And this is when she finally decided to confront the issue. And that's when all of this other compulsive lying information came out. After this encounter, of course, Hope ended up blaming Paige for everything. So they no longer speak, but Paige was extremely hurt by this. She said that she never saw this coming, that Hope was a wonderful friend to her, that she was always kind and helpful. She actually helped take care of Paige because Paige also had EDS. That's how they met on the internet, because they were both struggling with EDS.
But when Hope and I first met in person, she was initially driving to me because my health was not great. It was a combination of a gastroparesis flare and cyclic vomiting episode with just random fevers that no one ever figured out what was from. But she was driving to me once or twice a week to hang out, help around the house. My dog had puppies at the time, and the dog that had puppies is a Newfie, and the dad was a Bernese Mountain Dog, so these weren't small puppies. And she was coming over to help take care of the pups, and she'd take one or two up the stairs at a time, give them a bath, blow dry them, bring them back down, help clean the pen, feed them, and all sorts of stuff. Like, she's always been really helpful, always really sweet and generous, energetic, kind. Just, I never would have seen any of this coming. She was very considerate while she was here. She took the time to listen. If someone was having a problem, she'd ask if you wanted, if you needed support or just to vent. Like, who knows? I wasn't suspicious of her for anything except if she had EDS or not, because I never saw her dislocate, but she just might not be hypermobility type.
Hope was just a great friend, and that she was extremely helpful and present. Hope would stay the night at her house. They would have sleepovers. It's just really tearing Paige apart. Paige believes that the only reason that she's quote unquote going through with this VSED process is because she knows that on hospice care, they get different type of kits, I guess, to keep them comfortable, like she was saying in the video that she was explaining VSED. So she'll get all of the pain meds that she wants and all of the anxiety medication that she wants. So as long as she continues through with the VSED process, then she can stay on hospice for up to 6 months. So she thinks that she's going to ride it out for as long as she can throughout the next 6 months. And then when it comes to the point where they're like, all right, let's start this, then she's going to back out and go doctor shopping again until she's able to apply for hospice again and do the same thing all over again just to be able to get her medication. Not to mention that the hospice centers are actually required to do a psych eval on a person that wants to follow through with the VSED process, in which they did not perform on Hope. So not sure legally what can be done there, but that's that. The worst part of all of this, absolutely gut-wrenching. And this is the part that, this is why this is so flipping dangerous. A fellow EDS sufferer, took their own life because they couldn't be approved for this VSED process. This other person felt the need to take it into their own hands because they couldn't get approved for it. I just hate it. I hate it. Like, sure, take advantage of people financially. It's shitty AF, but that's replaceable. But to go as far as to encourage people to unalive, for what? Like, you are killing people. In my opinion, she should be under investigation for doing all of this for no reason whatsoever because somebody legitimately took their own life because of this. Ugh. Anyways, now to wrap this all up, do I think that Hope is sick? Yes. Do I think the majority of it is mental? Yes. Am I saying that she doesn't have any of these other conditions and that she's lying about every single thing that's happened to her? No, absolutely not. But I do think that based on the doctor shopping and seeking a diagnosis, that a lot of this is desperation to outwardly look sick, attention and money. And I hate saying that because I have experienced doctors who shrug me off as just having anxiety or being over dramatic when that's not the case at all. But I'm also here to say that people like her are the reason that those of us who are actually ill with these conditions get shrugged off as being over dramatic because people like her are looking for pain medication. Like, none of my pain has been beyond needing ibuprofen. And sure, my migraines, I have migraine medication, and I'm not saying that people can't take stuff here and there for pain, like opiates or whatever. I'm not saying that. But for her to be doctor shopping to get opiates, that tells me there's a problem there, right? That tells me that if you don't have those opiates, your body's going to withdraw from them, and you're going to find a way to get them. Even if that means scamming a bunch of people financially and lying about your conditions in order to gain sympathy and money to be able to get them, you're going to find a way to get them. She has a problem, in my opinion, a drug problem, and also probably needs people in her life that are going to positively influence her and encourage her to do the right thing. She needs some Dr. Phil in her life, to be completely honest. Like I said, can EDS be hard? Hell yeah, girl. Hell yeah, it can. But is there any reason that you should be encouraging people with EDS to take their own life? No, absolutely not. Everything can be managed with medication, with lifestyle changes, with whatever. Like, it can be managed. Don't just stop. Stop. Anyways, it has been said that Hope is now being investigated for Medicare fraud. I don't know how much of that is true. It was on Reddit, and I will show you guys the post in case you want to maybe look into it or you have been affected by her in some way. I've read some of the comments on the post, and it sounds like some people who are knowledgeable about it say that the crimes don't really fit what she is allegedly being investigated for. I do know that she had upwards of $8,000 from New York that she received in different funding. And then I know of an entire family who bought out her Amazon wish list.
An entire family bought out her Amazon wish list. She got $8,000 in New York that we know of in donations. I don't know how much she's gotten here, but we met on Instagram. She did ask me to put the Cash App on my bank account, not in my name. And I refused because no.
And then obviously all of this fiasco with her Cash App and afterlife expenses or what have you.
We got good things coming. Put your faith in me. So keep on going. We got good things coming our way. Waiting on the day when we got nothing to say.
Anyways, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you or anyone you know has been affected by any of the fundraising or TikTok videos or Instagram posts that Hope has created, then definitely get a hold of the number that I put up here for the police department that is allegedly investigating her. Otherwise, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I'm sorry that it got so long, but if you did enjoy it, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notification bell if you'd like to be notified every time that I post. And if you'd like to follow me on all social media platforms, you can find me at the Jessica Hickson. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
We got